Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Liana Shvachiy. I'm a PhD student in biomedical sciences in the University of Lisbon and University Medical Center of Göttingen. And I want to welcome everyone for our third day of the Female Clinician Engineer webinar series, which aims to have some international female engineers to present their success stories. First of all, some ground rules. Just wanted to tell you that these sessions will be recorded, and please do not turn your camera or microphone during the speaker session. If you have any questions, please use the chat. We will be more than happy to answer all your questions. Please stay with us until the end, not just to listen to our amazing speakers, which actually today we have a great surprise to have 4 speakers instead of 3. And just enjoy, learn, and have fun. So for today, we have 4 speakers, as I told you, because we had some changes in our schedule. We will be joined by Dr. Sara Ghoreishizadeh. We will have Ifeyinwa, Rita, Kanu, Dr. Seeto, and Dr. Lisa Bosman. So first of all, I would like to give the stage to my colleague, Banu, Kose, to present our first speaker.
Hi, this is Banu Kose from Istanbul. I am a cardiovascular imaging engineer at Istanbul Medipol University. Today, I am one of the hosts with Liana for the third Female Engineers webinar of Clinician Engineer Hub. We hope today's speech will be a guide road for discussing about engineering and the innovative ideas on technology and some wearable. There's an exciting speech now about wearable technologies and implantable nano bio materials. So I wanna I want to present you to our first speaker. She's Sara Ghoreishizadeh. Hope I pronounce her surname well. She's a lecturer and assistant professor in wearable technologies at University College of London. She received a PhD from École Polytechnique Fédérale de Lausanne in 2015 and has been with the Department of Electrical and Electronic Engineering at Imperial College as a junior research fellow. She received her Bachelor of Science and Master of Science degrees in Electrical Engineering and Microelectronics from Sheriff University of Technology. Now today's her presentation topic is wearable technologies. Thank you for being with us, Sara. We want to listen you now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Banu and Liana, for your invitation and for your very kind and complete introduction. I will try to share my screen now. Yes, I hope you can now see my slides. Yeah. So basically, the title of my presentation is a bit more focus within wearable technologies. I would like to talk about integrated microsystems for measurement of biomolecules. Before I talk about all the technical and my story, I would just like to say a few words about the university where I'm working now. It's University College London. It's located in the heart of London. It was established nearly 200 years ago and was the first university institute established in London and the first in England. We are very proud of this, the first in England to admit students regardless of their religion and gender. At the moment, it has some 50,000 staff and students working and studying at the college. And these are from over 150, or maybe they are 150 different countries. So it's a very diverse and culturally rich environment to work with. And in particular, as an engineer, as a medical engineer, I'm delighted and privileged to work at this university because the School of Medical Science, there are more than there are more than 12 associated hospitals. So the environment is really, really inviting and kind of ideal for engineering scientists such as myself to deliver impact and to enhance the impact of their research. Like to now move into the technical bits. I thought I'd start by giving you a brief introduction and overview into the essence of my field, which is integrated circuit and semiconductor technology. Some of you may be already familiar with that, but I understand there's diverse audience here. So I'll start with some definitions. An integrated circuit, or an IC, or microchip lay boards, consists of interconnected electronic components in a single piece, we call it a chip, of semiconductor materials. And the most fundamental component in an IC is a transistor. Transistor is simply a three-terminal device that can amplify an electric voltage or current that you apply to its input terminal at its output terminal, and basically electrically amplify a signal for you. Transistor was invented in 1948. The first transistor that was invented was a three-dimensional device, and then within 10 years, engineers managed to make this three-dimensional device in a planar form, so it was completely two-dimensional. And from then onwards, the progress of the field has been amazing. So you can see the first planar IC that was developed in 1958 had only 3 transistors in it, and over the time we managed to put more and more transistors in a single piece of semiconductor. In particular, silicon is the semiconductor we normally use. In fact, in 1965, Gordon Moore observed, based on the progress of the IC technology at that point, predicted that from now on, the number of transistors in a dense IC is going to double approximately every 1.5 years. And this is what we see. This held true over the following decades. And that is what we electrical engineers refer to it as the Moore's law. And we can see the impact of this in our everyday life. So that's, for example, a computer from 1982, can compare it with an iPhone from 30 years after, and you can see that the computer is 500 times bigger, is 100 times slower, and it's also 100 times heavier, while it is 10 times more expensive than the iPhone we have today. So that is basically the impact of the Moore's law in our everyday life. So how do we design integrated circuits? So I'd like to give this image that we look at integrated circuit design as a form of art. We would very much like to design them on canvas, but that's not possible anymore. We have very complicated and advanced CAD tools, computer-aided design tools, that it usually takes only 6 months for our students to learn the CAD tool and design their chips on, but we do enjoy designing electronic ICs using transistors, capacitors, resistors, etc. Once we have that design, we send our design files to a specialized foundry. We get so they build silicon wafers, and these silicon wafers are what we can chop and then chop again, and we get a very small single integrated circuit that we may package it. Yeah, I'm sure all of you have seen these black pieces of packaged ICs. The IC is what is inside. We may also use it outside. We may also use it in a naked form, not within a package. I'm going to show you examples of both later on. Right. So when we, as an electronic engineer, when we have a kind of a question to answer, as in when we have a design problem to produce a new piece of electronic hardware, we have one of the two ways to go about. We can either design a piece of electronics based on printed circuit board technology, where we can buy off-the-shelf ICs. These are ICs that have been designed or available in the market. We can get them, put them on a board, and make a system out of that may answer our design question. But we may also go into transistor level and design an application-specific integrated circuit for ourselves, using the route that I showed you, design it, send it to the foundry, etc. And each of these have benefits and advantages and disadvantages over the other. So ASIC has the benefit of being very application specific, so you can make something to your specific requirements. It can be very low power, it can be very low noise, and but on the negative side, it may take a long time to actually design something that is completely working, reliable, and so on. On the PCB side, you can imagine, so these are complementary kind of solutions. You're limited to what exists in the market, and your PCB is much larger than your ASIC, so it's prone to noise from the environment, etc. I'm going to again show you examples of both down the line. We use both of these techniques for different type of engineering questions and design problems. So what I would like to draw your attention to is the impact of the advances in the IC technology over the past years. You can see that the Moore's law and the fast progress of the IC technology has led to a smaller mobile handsets, and then a smarter mobile handsets. So it looks like we maybe okay with the mobile handsets, and we in medical engineering believe that the medical application of integrated circuit is the next big thing to happen. Next big thing to happen if the electrical engineer, microelectronics engineer focus their attention really on that and try to achieve the same level of progress that we did with handsets in the medical domain. In particular, there is this thing that we can imagine the impact of this advance in the technology has revolutionized the way we communicate with each other, and the amount of information, the scale and the frequency of information that we receive from the outside world has grown rapidly and substantially. But at the same time, the way we get information, well, we may receive a lot of information from the environment, but still we do not get much information from our own body, from our inside, let's say. So that is where wearable technology creates a huge impact. And I'm sure you have come across examples of wearable technologies, the Fitbits, smartwatches that can give you physiological parameters, heartbeat, etc. And there are devices that are already in the market, can be bought for different applications to monitor the vital signs of a newborn, or to be used in the hospital environment to check for vital signs to see whether the patient is deteriorating or not in a general ward, not only in the ICU, but in the general ward. And there are some devices, the continuous glucose monitoring devices that can continuously measure glucose in real time. By far, the majority of the devices that are in the market that are available to buy are based on measuring electrophysiological parameters. These are temperature, heart rate, ECG, etc. The only example that exists that can measure a biomolecule for you in the biofluids, that is blood, interstitial fluid, etc., is the continuous glucose measurement device. But we believe that there are more to biomolecule sensors, and there are more applications. There are unmet clinical needs actually that can be addressed if we could have more wearable biomolecule sensors. some examples of applications that are currently unmet are monitoring of chronic and metabolic diseases. The only example is now continuous glucose measurement for diabetes, but there are other conditions. There's physiological stress that can be monitored using these devices, and so on. There's also the application in personalized therapy. You can imagine if you could, for example, during the course of a chemotherapy, if the doctor could monitor the concentration of the therapeutic drug administered to the patient, they could say with much better accuracy what the optimum dosage of that drug could be for this specific person. So there are other emerging applications. For example, if we could measure different metabolites, different biomolecules, this could provide new tools to clinicians and scientists in biomarker research, so that we could try to find new biomarkers or investigate new biomarkers in a much faster time. So what is preventing us from measuring frequently? So there are a few aspects to it. I'd like to just dedicate a couple of slides to that here. So one aspect is that the majority of the equipment we have in the laboratories are based on labeled techniques. So when we want to measure a biomolecule, normally because the biomolecule doesn't have a specific physical parameters to allow its detection, we normally need to label it with a specific type of molecule that might be fluorescent, etc. So the way we measure it is through measuring basically the amount of the fluorescent molecules that have been binded to this biomolecule of interest. So use cameras, imaging techniques, etc. And as you can imagine, these are time consuming and costly to do. So it may take a long time to do that. It might be expensive to do that. So it's simply not possible to do such a measurement frequently, every few minutes or every few hours on a specific, to measure a specific biomolecule. And in contrast, there are label-free techniques that we can use for some classes of biomolecules, where we can take advantage of chemical parameters such as chemical parameters such as the impedance of the impedance of the biomolecule somehow, and the other parameters such as the reflective factors of the biomolecule to measure it. And the major advantage of this over labeled method is that it can be much cheaper to do that, and it can provide a real-time measurement. In particular, one class of label-free techniques use electrochemical sensing techniques. So electrochemical sensing is where you can transduce the concentration of biomolecules, such as, for example, glucose. You can transduce it into an electrical voltage or current, and then the electrical voltage and current can be measured, amplified using electronics, which can be made in a cheap way, for which there is already a huge technology and mass production line there. So it can all, the readout of such sensor could be all done in a cheap way. There is also the problem of invasiveness. If we are to measure something frequently, you can imagine, for example, for the glucometers, the glucose measurements, if you have to prick your finger every time, then that would be invasive and not ideal. Instead, you can look at other biofluids where the sampling may not be as invasive. So there we go into the domain of subcutaneous sensors or implantable sensors. This is an example of a sensor that you can just attach under the skin, implant under the skin, or just using a very small thin needle penetrate the skin to measure the molecule in the interstitial fluid. It's not as well, I wouldn't say not, it's kind of that it is now, there is a huge evidence, scientific evidence behind that the concentration of biomolecules in interstitial fluid follows those of the blood. But this, as you can imagine, is still not totally non-invasive, it's minimally invasive, because it still involves some stages that well, I believe everybody can agree that they're a bit invasive. And by far the most the completely non-invasive ones are those that do not use any of those biofluids, and they can rely on other biofluids that are accessible on the body, such as sweat, saliva, and tear fluid. So in my research over the past, say 5 to 10 years, I've been focused on implantable sensors and wearable devices that are focused on, that use saliva as a biofluid. I'm going to show you a couple of examples here. So that is the first device I'd like to share with you today. That is a device we developed to measure a panel of biomarkers and biomolecules in the interstitial fluid. So the idea is for this device to be implanted under the skin. And as you can see, there are a few different electrochemical sensors on top of these, the blue squares. And we develop each of these such that they can measure a different biomolecule, glucose, lactate, glutamate, and etoposide was the target here. And we designed an application-specific integrated circuit. You can see it on the left to interface the sensor. And this was a fully batteryless device. So we can deliver energy and power to it inductively, for example, using a smartphone or a patch on top of the skin, where it is a smart patch on top of the skin where this is implanted. This was a large team, kind of a large project, and the result of a teamwork that we finally, after 3-4 years of intensive work, we managed to assemble the first device. So that's a picture. You can see the chip on the left and the sensors on the right, and the inductors are beneath this. And so in order for this to be implantable, we also studied various techniques of packaging these such that the device is biocompatible. It doesn't provoke any reactions from the host. And at the same time, we needed access to the biofluid. So while it had to be biocompatibly packaged, we needed still to allow this biofluid to reach the surface of the sensors. And so within this device, I'd like to say that the brain of the device was this ASIC that allowed the actuation. You can see there's a block diagram of the ASIC device here. I will not go into details of this, but generally speaking, this was a piece of electronics that allowed the actuation of the sensors and measuring the signal of the sensors, amplifying them, removing the noise of the environment, and combining them in a smart way together and sending them wirelessly outside. And this was all done, all this functionality was done using the only a 1.5 millimeter and 3 millimeter piece of silicon. And the whole thing consumed less than 1 milliwatt, that is 1,000 times smaller than 1 watt. So this was the ASIC technology really allowed us to design and to fabricate this piece of biosensor that could be fully batteryless and implantable. And we did implant this in a lab rodent. And we did manage to continuously measure glucose, lactate, and paracetamol in the interstitial fluid of this animal. And here I showed the details of the measurement we had for paracetamol measurement. We injected the animal with the dose of bolus of paracetamol, and we measured. The green line shows the measurement with the implanted device, and the red shows the measurement with the gold standard. And we did extract some blood from the animal and measured it at intervals. So the project attracted massive media attention, and we were very happy with the outcome of this large teamwork that also involved clinicians, both clinicians and engineers. So we encountered some technical problems in that way, and the technical problems weren't new things. So they're known to engineers working, medical engineers working in this field, and they mostly have to do with the kind of the type of the electrochemical sensors. And that is, I mean, once you have this device implanted, you would need to find a way to kind of detect whether the sensor is working fine or whether it's been failed. And failure may happen due to various reasons. It could be physical failure, chemical failures, etc. And within my team, we managed to find a method to kind of use the impedance of the sensor to predict whether the sensor has been is failed or not. There are other challenges with the sensors that we're working on. For example, calibration with the finger prick test, which is still the gold standard and needed. So we are working on methods that may allow auto calibration, removing the need for a gold standard device. Right, I'm not sure how many times I have. I cannot, yeah, I can check my phone. 5 more minutes? Yep. Okay, good. So we also looked into other biofluids, not only interstitial fluids. So we looked into saliva, and I'm kind of expanding my team on technologies that can analyze saliva. Saliva is promising medium to gain insight into the health of the body, in particular the oral health and the health of and the brain condition and the central nervous system. And there are certain biomarkers that are at the moment they're measured even in saliva, such as cortisol, which is a biomarker of physiological stress. Moreover, there are over 2,000 proteins in saliva, with almost 30% of these also present in blood. And there are advantages to using saliva as opposed to blood and interstitial fluid. Obviously, it is non-invasive to sample it, and is easy to sample it, and you can get it in an unlimited kind of, you get an unlimited reproducibility if you sample saliva. And there are biomolecules that we are in particular interested in. There are ions in saliva, such as pH, which is the acidity of saliva, that is important in some diseases. Oral health is related to diabetes. It's also related to GERD, which I believe clinicians of us know what exactly is. GERD is the I forgot what it is short of, but this is basically the acid burn. Sorry, I forgot what that's short for. GERD, G-E-R-D. I may remember it later. But there are also other biomolecules, such as cortisol, which is, as I said, biomarker of physiological stress. There's glutamate, which is a neurotransmitter related to pain, but also traumatic brain injury, and there's lactate, and so on. So we did develop a first prototype of a wireless pH sensor to measure the salivary pH in a real-time and continuous way. I'm glad to say my student managed to actually measure salivary pH using this device, which is a PCB-based device. So that was a kind of exploratory project to see whether we can actually do this. So we took off-the-shelf electronics components, and we also embedded a pH sensor, and we managed to see the variation in the pH after the consumption of soda and acidic meal. So we were quite satisfied with these results, and the next natural step for us would be to make this device smaller, such that it can be placed in the mouth with no disruption, and while it is totally non-invasive. So on the top, you see top right, you see the ASIC that we designed for this purpose. So we fabricated these, where on our ASIC, we embedded sensor arrays where we may develop our pH sensors, but also different types of other sensors, for example, to measure cortisol, glutamate, and so on. And that's our envisaged sensor. So this would be small enough to be placed on a tooth. And we are currently working on this to develop a sensor on top. We have already proved the concept. That's what you see on the bottom figure, where we show that we can develop different types of, in this particular picture, platinum nanostructure, which is essential to the development of the biosensor on top of our chip. So I'm currently looking for 2 bright postdoctoral researchers to join my team and fully develop this research. So feel free to spread the word. Would be happy to discuss more details on this. But we have also, I'm very glad that since I've joined UCL, I've been able to work very closely with clinicians and try to develop research into domains that are of interest to both of us. So on the topic of salivary biomarkers and salivary measurements, we, in collaboration with the Royal National Orthopedic Hospital, I ran my very first clinical study. That's an observational clinical study to see the to quantify the impact of acute pain on salivary biomarkers. As you know, pain is essential to our existence and is very important in the development of the individuals, but also is the kind of main. But also reducing that is the main motivation in medicine. But at the moment, there are no objective methods to measure pain, and there is a huge need for more objective methods because the current methods are mostly based on self-reporting. They do not work fine for those who might be under anesthesia, those that are under coma, or for infants or with mental problems. So we are trying to see whether we can actually use saliva as a medium to detect biomarkers related to pain, and from that objectively measure pain for those patients who cannot self-report, or to produce an objective way to measure pain, to assess pain for absolutely everybody. And so this project was done by my researchers, Sara and Angeliki. You see the pictures on the right, and we observe it's still under progress, but these are the unpublished data here, and we observed that actually the glutamate levels in saliva do change in a statistically significant way as a result of a very short period of induced pain. So we're looking further into this question, and we are expanding the team into that research to fully understand what's going on there, and also to kind of develop the techniques that we have in wearable, intraoral wearable sensors towards application in pain assessment. With that, I'd like to summarize. I hope I've convinced you that the advances in semiconductor technology has led to new, smarter, and smaller medical devices that has absolutely revolutionized the quality of life of individuals, in particular patients, and that the emerging wearable biomolecule sensors can enable continuous and real-time and non-invasive analysis of biomarkers, and through that they can address unmet clinical needs in healthcare, in personalized therapy, and in continuous monitoring of patients, and harvesting really the potentials of these biomarkers. In particular, looking at new biofluids such as salivary biomarkers requires a very close collaboration between clinicians and engineers, such that the effort can be joint and can be directed to the problems of importance and interest to both. Like to acknowledge the kind support of the sponsors, EPSRC, Wellcome Trust, and UCL, and the Royal National Orthopedic Hospital. And the works that I presented today were done mostly by my team, students, and in collaboration with engineering scientists and clinicians at the hospitals and UK and Switzerland engineering schools. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sara. This was an inspiring presentation. I was very excited to learn what you will tell us today, and it was very inspiring because I didn't know that you were also working with saliva biomarkers. So it was very great to learn about checking about the cortisol, glutamine, and ions. So it was very amazing for me. So we have some questions, and also I want to ask something. You know, it was great to learn about integrated design, integrated circuit design of what you studied. Just we know that a body contains lots of data, and you are finding the right design method to collect that data, and you know how to read that data. Just creating the correct sensors and finding the correct reading methods, we can collect lots of things. And what you are expecting for the next generation devices, what in your field. So we are doing something, and every day we are learning more about collecting data from body, human body, and in the components of the body. What is the next generation devices and circuits you are waiting for, looking for?
I think the next generation wearable devices I'm waiting to see are those that are completely autonomous, those that do not need calibration, those that are totally, as one of my great colleagues says, they're totally on a wearable. So you wear them when you're not, and other people are not aware of them. They're small, they're totally non-invasive, and you're not even aware of them.
Yeah, the motivation is finding non-invasive or minimally invasive devices and low noise, low power, and small devices.
Yeah, absolutely. All those. I mean, those are very interesting and very good technical challenges for us, because when you work in environment such as saliva, that is where you can not only measure the biomolecule you're interested in, but you can also, there's also interference due to lots of other biomolecules, but also interference due to the environment, electromagnetic interference. So low noise is absolutely essential. And all the electronics we develop have to be extremely low noise, but not only low noise, they have to be low noise while also consuming very low power. And these two usually go in different directions. Usually to design low noise,
finding the balance.
Yes, exactly. Usually to design low noise, you need to consume quite a good amount of power, but then being able to reduce these two at the same time, that's a very interesting engineering challenge.
I know you are working in a very interdisciplinary field, because biochemistry, bioelectronics, and biofluids, physiology, electronics, and softwares. So do you, what kind of, I want to learn about your lab environment. What are the people are from in your lab? Because why I'm asking this, because you are looking for some postdocs or PhD students. I think there was something you noted somewhere. So maybe the audience want to learn what kind of people in your lab are working.
Yeah, well, I called my lab biomarkers, biosensors, and bioelectronics, because these are the three streams in my research. And I do have actually, we do have dry lab spaces and wet lab spaces. Wet lab spaces are where we developed all the electrochemistry and biochemistry sensors, and we test our sensors and so on. And the dry labs are where we design our electronics, we test them, we fabricate them, and so on. So the postdocs I mentioned are in the latter two fields. I'm looking for one in biosensor design and another one in electronics design. Well, to be more correct, in integrated circuit design.
Thank you. And Barbara has a question, Barbara Marino. She says, is it possible to join this field with only a Bachelor of Science, or is a Master of Science or PhD required to do the cool stuff?
The coolest stuff, I like it. So basically, so the projects that I showed, all of them are quite multidisciplinary, and it's bit difficult for a single person to know all the 3 or 4 different fields. So they're usually different people who take care of different aspects of the field. And at an undergraduate degree with a BS or MS degree, I would think a specialized field would be more suitable. But then the whole projects I have in my lab, they're all multidisciplinary. So everybody in the lab would be exposed to other fields as well. They will learn from each other, and they will closely collaborate with each other.
Great to learn this. Thank you, Sara. I have lots of questions, but we don't have much time. And it was very nice to listen you when you were starting with more slow. So it was very nice to remember it again. Now I will give the floor to Liana to present our second guest. I want to thank Sara again. Thank you for being with us today. And now Liana will present our second speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Banu. So our second speaker is Ifeyinwa Kanu, who is the founder and director of the IntelliDigest. She has a PhD in civil engineering involving application of artificial intelligence and omics analysis to optimize anaerobic process. She was nominated top 50 women in engineering under 35 in UK in 2017. She is a recipient of various awards, such as Royal Academy of Engineering Enterprise Fellowship, Royal Bank of Scotland Back Her Business, Fellow of Royal Society of Arts, Associate Fellow of Higher Education Authority, member of Chartered Institution of Water and Environmental Management, and council member of Women's Engineering Society. A pioneer of Harriet Watt Female in Engineering and Science Forum. And at the end, she's the founding member of Harriet Watt University Women's Engineering Society and a chair of WES affiliated student group. So she's an amazing engineer that will talk about the extracting high value products from food waste. So thank you very much, Ifeyinwa, and I am passing the talk to you. You are muted, Ifeyinwa.
Okay, I think I'm muted now, and
yes, now we can hear you. Thank you very much again for joining us today.
Okay. So thank you, Liana, and thank you, Banu, for the introduction, and really appreciate to be here today. I think it was a very interesting presentation that I've just listened to, and probably that will lead more into what I'm going to talk about now. So I love nature, and I'm passionate about engineering and how engineering technology data can actually help us to live a more sustainable and environmentally friendly life. So I started off as a civil engineer, and my first degree was more looking into steel structures and reinforced concrete designs. I had a stint in the dredging industry and the financial sector before I moved into, I decided, I want to go into sustainability because I had some interesting experiences, in the dredging industry. So I began to understand the challenges in the environment, and my thought is, how can we make things work better? And that was when all the buzz around sustainability was coming up, and I felt this is really something that I resonate with and I reckon with. And I went ahead to do my master's in environmental engineering, and in my PhD in environmental engineering, it was focused on how we can use artificial intelligence and advanced biological investigations to optimize anaerobic processes. And as part of that, I've been working around the sector of advanced technology, looking at molecular technologies, enzymatic biocatalysis, how we can use artificial intelligence to optimize processes, how we can actually ensure transparency and accountability using blockchain platforms, and how can we generate more data using IoT system, which is kind of linking up with what we just heard about in the last presentation. So, and I think there's a lot of nexus within different sectors when you look at how these technologies are being applied, whether in the medical profession or otherwise. And for me, I think engineering really empowers you to do a lot, because then wherever you go, there is always an engineering solution to solve. So whether it's in the medical profession, whether it's in the robotic surgery, or whether you're trying to analyze samples using molecular technologies, Illumina, all these machines, they have to be built by engineers. So, and you know, the importance of being able to develop predictive models to make these decisions are very critical at this point. And there is issue around, you know, transparency and accountability which can be drawn from blockchain. So I think things are really getting very much linked together, and wherever sector you're working in, you tend to have some need to basically generate some data, do some analysis, whether it's in the social sciences or agricultural sciences or astronomy. You know, the basic technology revolves around the whole thing. So I'm really pleased to talk more about what I'm doing at the moment with these technologies and how I'm looking forward to the future of a more sustainable, more circular, and more resource efficient society. So just to give you an overview, the United Nations FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization, they've identified that over 1.3 billion tons of food is wasted globally. The economic impact of that is $1 trillion, which is about 800 billion pounds. And the potential environmental impact of that, if it's not properly handled, is over 3.3 gigatons of CO2 equivalent emitted into the atmosphere. And that's because the food waste is very putrid, and you know, it can decay quickly and it releases this kind of greenhouse gas into the environment. So if you look at the major sources of food that we have, that we normally waste, you have things like vegetables, cereals, fruits in the hierarchy. And when you look at what is nutrient content in food waste, is massive. And at the moment, if we're dumping this in landfill or sending it down the drain, we're not doing the environment any good, and we're not doing the society any good. So, and this is why there's been a lot of regulatory drive to ensure that businesses, people, everyone understands the impact of food waste and how we can mitigate it, as well as the inedible food waste, how we can turn it into useful resources. Consumers are demanding that businesses become more responsible and they're handling their processes more efficiently. And also the COVID-19 issue very much highlighted the challenges we have both in supply chain, both in how we collect waste streams, but in the exposure of people to potential hazards by storing food waste at home or wherever it is being generated. The Health and Safety Executive, they've identified that food waste can actually go through microbial fermentation, leading to release of bioaerosols, and those bioaerosols can have quite an impact in the health of people. So it could lead to very terminal diseases such as asthma or chronic obstructive pulmonary diseases. So there is need for us to understand the health implication of most of these things. I know that we've been speaking to a lot of hospitals around their food waste, and in the UK, the hospitals are one of the key, the top producers of food waste, because in as much as they try to reduce their food waste stream, there is the potential that when somebody's sick, the person will not want to eat food, and then you generate food waste in the hospitals. And we need to work with most of the hospitals to enable them to support the patients, as well as convert the food that's not eaten into useful products. And this is also driven by regulation. United Nations has set a target by 2030, no food waste will send a landfill. And most countries are currently having targets on how to reduce food waste going to landfill or down the sewer. In the UK, the target is by 2030, and also UK has set a target by 2050 to achieve net zero emission. And this is to enable other governments and other societies to be able to do the same. So what do? We've developed this machine that can actually take food waste, break it down into simple molecules. So when you put the food waste into the system, it's kind of macerated, mechanically broken down, and then we analyze that using specific sensors that is embedded in the system. And with those sensors, we will be able to know the protein, carbohydrate, and lipid concentration in that food waste sample. Then it allows us to dose the right amount of enzyme and then monitor the process to make sure that we generate the right type of simple molecules that we're looking for. We're looking at fatty acids, amino acids, some polysaccharides, and some organic acids. And what we're aiming to do in the future is to explore other enzymes we can use in our process so that we can also produce higher value molecules that are in very much high demand, so that at the end of the day, we are extracting the maximum value from food waste. And why this is really important is that by doing this on site, we actually able to take, recover higher value at the earliest possible time from the food waste rather than allowing it to go into the environment. One of the things that the output could be used in is can be used to grow new crops. So when you look at advanced farming, we can use in advanced farming so that then we can actually monitor the nutrient content in the product that we're producing. So when you know so when you look at things like hydroponics, you can then dose the right amount of nutrients to ensure that you're getting the right amount of nutrient in the food sample you're producing. So if somebody is in hospital and needs a specific amount of nutrient in a strawberry or in an apple, then you can actually achieve that. So that is the way we're looking at it. And also we can look at packaging. How can we use this products to produce packaging that's completely biodegradable, such a way that it goes back into that system and then it's creating new product. For us, it's about the circularity and the resource efficiency that you can achieve with this. And this is purely driven by embedded sensors that enable us to do this analysis, so that at the end of the day, we know that we've fully broken down the food waste that's going into the system into simple molecules, the use of enzymatic biocatalysis, and also the ability to use artificial intelligence to make sure that the system is completely automated. And because the output is higher value materials that complies with the REACH exemption, we are able to partner with existing logistics to take that and then take it to the manufacturing, the sustainable chemical manufacturing center, where it's then separated and sent to the final user. Or we actually at times have users that can use it directly, which is then sent to them. And also we're looking at the ability to use that on a household scale. So we're discussing with different councils at the moment to work with them, because this is one of the key things coming out of COVID-19, with most of the waste management staff being either taking care of loved ones and not available to pick up the waste stream, and also the potential health hazard if that is not done. It means that there is better solutions to be developed. So we're looking at the future whereby we have these systems in households, and it can actually break down food waste into very simple molecules that could be useful for other manufacturing processes. So the advantage of what we're doing is that, we want to make this very user-friendly for people, and we want people to have the benefit of using it themselves and understanding that they're really creating a change by the actions they're doing. Because in as much as in the UK at the moment, there is this push by regulation to make sure that people separate their food waste, but people don't feel confident that the way the food waste is handled is worth the time they take to separate it. So by doing this on site, they see the value they're creating, and that also motivates people to do it more and do it more efficiently. The system is quite odor free, which means that it doesn't create any odor or any challenge for the end user to be able to use it. Is IoT and AI enabled, meaning that it is more efficient. It allows us to do predictive maintenance, which means that the system can last longer. And for us, that is one of the key things for us. So it's not just about developing products that will stay for about 2 or 3 years and they become another waste product. But for us, is how can we engineer systems that last longer? So we will be providing every of our solution as a subscription to the end user. And for us, is being able to use the IoT and AI in the system to provide predictive maintenance when it is necessary, and be able to take back that product at its end of life to remanufacture it into a new product. And using molecular technology, we're able to adopt the solution of enzymatic biocatalysis, and also how we can use other enzymes that's not being used before in achieving, especially in green chemistry, to produce novel products that is not yet achievable. That's mostly being carried out by conventional chemistry processes. So our process output also is very efficient in the sense that we're leveraging existing logistics, we're enabling resource efficiency, and we're complying with the REACH exemption, which is really something that has really set us apart and enabled businesses to think of using the solution we're developing. So once we produce the chemicals, we need to be able to, sustainable chemicals, we need to get it across to people that need it. We've set up this platform, which we'll call the SourceChem platform. So it's a software, it's an e-commerce platform. And this is where you bring in the software part of what we're doing. And this e-commerce platform has got a blockchain behind it, which enable us to keep track of where the output that comes from our process, linking up to the input, so that most end users can actually account for the use of recycled or upcycled materials in their process. And the question is, why is this important? It's important because United Nations, they've set a target that by 2030, all packaging materials must have at least 30% recycled content in them. In the UK, a regulation has been passed that by April 2022, any packaging material that doesn't have 30% recycled content will have to be taxed. So businesses need to show evidence that they're actually using recycled material. And what we're doing is to enable them to actually assess this upcycled material. So in it, we can tell the end user what is amino acid, fatty acid, organic acid, polysaccharide content of that output. And for those businesses that have proper separation processes, they can actually buy it off our platform. Others, we may need to separate it further before they can use it, providing that quality control for them. So it's more bringing out where in our technology where we're using the blockchain to actually provide transparency and accountability to our end user. And also, we also working on the solution post-COVID-19, because we actually set up the IntelliSavers platform initially because when we went in with our machine to the hotels and restaurants to use our solution, we realized that over 50% of the food that's actually going to waste are leftover buffet that shouldn't go to waste in the first place. So we enabled them with a platform to make food that could have gone to waste available to people that need it. But because of post-COVID-19, there is no longer need for this solution. We're not repurposing it into a solution that enable people to pre-book meal, because we want a situation whereby by the time we leave COVID-19, we don't want people to go back to the norm. We don't want people to go back using buffet and generating more food waste. For us, it's not just about doing business. It's about being a responsible business. Our aim is to provide solutions that work for people and also work for the entire society. So we want to empower these businesses to avoid using buffer in the future as we get out of COVID-19. This solution can be very useful in hospitals too, because then meals can be pre-booked by people or by patients and then be provided in a temperature controlled system, which can then be accessed using visual and speech recognition. So you don't really need to touch anything. All you need to do, just go to the system, use a visual and speech recognition, say your code, and the system knows which of the trays that's got your food in, and then you can take your food and then walk away and eat it. So one of the key things we want to do with this is to enable people to pre-book meal. What does that do? When you pre-book meal, it means that the caterer can actually prepare the meal in good time. So that means we are better managing our supply chain so that people can then, the farmers can then work better. So at the end of the line, this transcends to many levels and tiers in the supply chain, in the sense that if people pre-book meals, the caterers can plan better, the farmers can plan better, and then we tend to reduce the amount of food waste we generate at every level of the tier. So that is really a target with this, to enable businesses to use speech recognition and visual recognition to achieve success. And this is really the core of how we integrate all this technology to solve most of the societal problem that we have. So in everything, our solution allow for, we provide free installation for our users. We enable predictive maintenance, and we enable them to stabilize operational costs, whether it's in the hospital, whether it's in corporate offices, whether it's in hospitality sector, whether it's working with councils and households to actually solve the problem of around food waste, and also enabling businesses to be regulatory compliant, and both the government also, and also because of the data that come off a system, people can then account for net zero emission, and also people can manage their supply chain better, which is really very important, especially with what we witnessed with supply chain being really disrupted during this COVID-19. And just to touch on the SDGs, for us, it's about impact, it's about the value we're creating for the society. So we always want to link it with the Sustainable Development Goals. How are we making impact? How are we solving global challenges? And with our solutions, we enabling the reduction in poverty, we enabling people to have better access to food, because one of the key things is that at the moment we do a lot of industrial crops to be able to boost the bioeconomy. And using our solution, we will be reducing the amount of industrial crops we may have to grow in the future, which means they'll have more land available for people to grow their own crops for human consumption. And this is about reducing, the hunger we have in our society. About 800 million people are really hungry all over the world. So we shouldn't be wasting food in the first place. All about how can we really solve this problem. And like I mentioned about the good health and well-being, if we're able to grow crops more efficiently, if we're able to actually determine the nutrient content in the crops we're growing, because then we're using probably advanced agriculture like hydroponics, then we can actually help people to live better, eating better food. If we're solving the problem of food waste, definitely we're providing clean water and sanitation, because the most food waste contain moisture content, and through our process we actually put that water back into the ground or into the system, which means that we're recovering the water, and we're also preventing waste happening. Because of our solution and how we use it, we are actually providing decent work and economic growth, which means that rather than people being exposed to very hazardous working environments, we are enabling people to actually manage food waste in a more refined, in a more user-friendly way. And that's really very important for us, that people are not exposed to very hazardous conditions that leads to emission of bioaerosols and some other greenhouse gas and greenhouse gases. So that's really something that we're achieving with this. I mean, we're enabling industry innovation and infrastructure by creating solutions that integrate different technology to advance and solve societal problems. By also providing solutions that prevent decent work and economic and empower and enhancing economic growth, we are also reducing inequalities in our society, so that people then do more skillful jobs, and people tend to do more things and train more for more skilled jobs. And then with what we're doing, we are providing a more sustainable city and community that are smarter and more efficient. It's all about enabling responsible consumption and production. How do we understand the demand and supply? So we're not just producing, we're not just extracting from nature, we're not just depleting the natural resources, but thinking more on how can we ensure circularity and resource efficiency in whatever we're doing. And you know, the huge impact of food waste, potential of 3.3 gigatons of CO2 emission on a yearly basis. We are actually addressing the SDG on climate action. And if we're saving the degradation of topsoils by growing industrial crops, that means we're enabling better life on land. And we're really pleased to be able to provide all the sustainable and environmentally friendly solutions that addresses the SDGs. And we're really looking to do more to make sure that the more we use technology better, then we are driving towards a more sustainable society. And you know, as part of understanding the impact of what we're doing, we've been recognized in different awards and being supported by different organizations, which we think is really good for us to acknowledge in this presentation. So and I think that's the end of my presentation. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Ify. It's a very interesting topic that everyone should think about, the food waste and the hunger. So we have two coins, two sides of the same coin, people who are wasting a lot of food and people in hunger. And I'm very happy actually to see that you have been supported by the EIT community, as I am part of the EIT Health alumni community and the EIT Health. So I'm very happy to see a fellow alumni from this community. So we have some questions for you. It was actually a very great presentation. Thanks again.
Thank you.
So can you offer some groups or communities for the listeners that are interested with challenges of waste treatment?
So is it more like trying to speak to people about it? Yeah, I love to do that. So I love to do that. I do that all the time, and so very much interested in reaching out to anyone who we want to have a chat on that.
Yeah. And then there is another comment and question from Banu. She's saying that it's an excellent thing is that people respect the environment and nature in which they live. It's very inspiring to build your whole research of work on it. People around us need to be more sensitive about this. So what should we do for the waste behavior change, and what would you suggest to spread this and raise awareness?
So I'll take the first question. What should we do for the waste behavior change? I think it's all about, the more we talk about it, the brighter. So people need to understand that they need to reduce their waste. And also, like what we're doing, how can we create technology that we help to repurpose those waste that are unavoidable. So when you look at food waste, you have the edible and inedible food waste. So we encourage people to reduce their edible food waste. So, you know, being mindful of what you put in the fridge. There are some technologies now that's been developed by both Bosch, Samsung, that can help you to track the expiry date of whatever product you have in your fridge. Such products could help you to avoid throwing things away, because then you can track the end use date or use by date, and then you don't necessarily throw things away. So those are the way we actually generate edible food waste. But for inedible food waste, it's more like, how do you then repurpose it into useful materials that can then recirculate over time in the environment without causing any harm to the environment? So that's where we then come in with the technology to enable you to do that. So it's a combination of technology and awareness. So people need to, I think a lot of awareness is going on and people are aware. It's just that they also need the technology so that they can actually repurpose whatever is inedible into useful material. So the next question is, what would you suggest to spread this and raise awareness? I think this is a great medium. This is going to put on YouTube and people are going to listen to it somehow. So this is one of the ways. And for me, I do run events. I did one event recently, both in Edinburgh and London, discussing with hospitality sector managers in hotel and other businesses and facility managers to actually highlight how tech and data could drive changes in this sector. So yeah, every opportunity to talk about it, I'm always very happy to do that, because that's really something we need to address in our society.
A question from me specifically, because I was actually surprised to see when I came back to Portugal that there are some applications to try to reduce the food waste, like restaurants or shops who just prepare like a basket with some things that are expiring soon, so food that could be wasted in this day, and then you buy them cheaper. Do you think that it's a good way of trying to reduce the waste? Is it sustainable as well? Do you believe in these kind of applications? And
that's really interesting, Liana. I think when it comes to supermarket, it's really a difficult thing because they're there to make profit. And so they want to keep it on the shelf as long as they can keep it. So it's really difficult to convince them to do otherwise. And then when it's too late, they want to sell it cheaper. And at the end of the day, most of the time, people don't buy it and end up going to the waste. I think, to be frank, that boils down to that supply chain management issue. Can people pre-book things so that we can then manage what is being supplied, so that people in the farm can manage the farming and the whole system can be better? So I think if we can create a structure whereby I know that this is what I shop every week, like it doesn't differ that much on a weekly basis, except if I go to the shop and see something differently. So can you actually pre-book your shopping so that the grocery shops can plan better? So it's, at the end of the day, it boils down to the end user. We want an easy life, is it not? We want to go to the shop at any point in time and pick up whatever we want. And the grocery shop, we need to do that for them to be in business. But can we take the responsibility to say, okay, we want a platform that we can pre-book and pre-order things. So with that, the grocery shop don't have to keep everything because they know what they need to bring into the shop. And then the farmer will plan what the farmer needs to send to the grocery shop. So at the end of the day, along the whole supply chain, we're managing everything better and becoming more resilient as a society. So it's just that personal question we need to ask ourselves: what can we sacrifice?
Thank you. We have also a question from Sara. Thank you for the great and very informative talk. What type of information do you collect from the recycling chambers, and what type of sensor, how often do you measure them?
So what information we collect is, so when the food waste comes in, we pick up information on the protein, carbohydrate, and lipid concentration of that food waste, and then we dozen the right. And because once we know that, and at specific operating conditions, probably looking at moisture content and temperature and other factors that we put in place, we will know the amount of, because once we know that, we will know the amount of enzyme we're going to dose on that particular food waste. So that means we are actually agnostic to whatever kind of food waste we put in the system. And then we're able to monitor the breakdown. So because we're using specific enzymes, there are specific molecules we are trying to monitor. And then we will know when the complex molecule, which is the food waste, is completely broken down into the simple molecules. And that information is then registered on the SourceChem platform where people can then purchase the material. I'm happy to chat about that with you more, Sarah.
Okay, thank you very much, Ifey. We don't have any more questions, but if someone wants to ask you something, I think they can reach for you. It was a very nice talk, and I hope you stay with us until the end.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So now I am passing the stage for Banu to present our third speaker.
Okay, our third speaker is Seeto. She is an information technology management consultant at Virtue Group and a chair industry advisor board School of Computer Science and Engineering at New South Wales. And there are lots of things about her career. She will tell about this, I hope. And I want to say this: she loves enabling social impact through technology. This is her word. And an active learner, passionate about keeping its real leadership and staying open to diversity. She works with high-performing teams and individuals that are not afraid to try and are exceptional at the execution. So I am very excited about her presentation, and I have lots of questions for her. Her presentation topic is IT telecommunications. Hi, Pia.
Hi, Banu. Thank you for the kind introduction. Can you see my screen okay? Is my sharing okay? Perfect. It is a little closer to dawn here in Sydney, and I'm thrilled to be here, and I've been learning so much from my co-speakers. So Sara and Ifeyinwa, thank you for your time. The past few webinars have shown experts demonstrating their amazing technical expertise, and what I want to have you take away today is not technical. I actually want to talk to you about networking. In my work and experience, I found that the expertise needs to, I found that expertise needs to relate to others to fully flourish. And it is through these connections that we are able to think big and achieve big. In this day and age, and we've seen some, great 2 examples in the last couple of speeches about how we need to increasingly see the benefit and the necessity of multidisciplinary approaches to our problems. My job as a project manager is to organise cross-collaboration of experts. Too often we are told to network without being told what it really means to do it effectively. And the phrase is not the phrase, it's not what you know, but who you know springs to mind. And in the context of network creation, I find this a little misleading. To know people, as I have needed to know, is to know their whats. I've had to know enough about their expertise to discuss it with them, enough to be able to see its relevance to my own project, and enough to be able to tell someone else about it. And on top of this, I've had to know the person personally. In any aspect of an expert's work, you see their passion and their personality, and this forms the context of their work. So understanding where someone is coming from helps me to be a better communicator and manager. The stories I've selected today centre around my passions of women in engineering, leadership, and supporting the next generation to make our society better. They reflect how I am quite selective about my relationships. I purposely look to overlay my passions with the experiences and relationships I have. For me, this fuels the process of networking for meaning, and it allows the time commitment to amplify benefits on a number of fronts. The more interaction you have with your network, the more durable the relationship becomes, and in turn, the opportunities and support follow. So for context, I'd like to share where networking has taken me. I started volunteering at the University of New South Wales off the invitation to join as the industry advisory board for the School of Computer Science and Engineering in 2014. My acceptance of this opportunity allowed me to build upon an introduction with Maury Pognacco, the then head of school. It also reconnected me with the school I came from and meet others who were passionate about supporting outreach of students into industry. That seed grew into a number of relationships and experiences to work on projects that are close to my heart. This photo was taken last year at the Robotic World Cup hosted in Sydney. The photo, it is one of those experiences where I got to see firsthand the talents of our top students competing in this international arena, putting machine learning, AI and robotics into action. Another opportunity that stemmed from this engagement was to support outreach of young women and the next generation of women into the Faculty of Engineering. This picture is taken with my daughter Phoebe and Dr. Alex Bannigan at the Women in Engineering end of year drinks a few years ago. Alex at the time led the Women in Engineering camp. My daughter was one of those 100 girls the year prior who was able to participate and learn about the 9 engineering disciplines and through the university and in industry. For my daughter, that experience reinforced her decision to study engineering, which I'm pretty proud of. My next story is one a little closer to the field of medicine, focusing on the work being done by Professor Akot Atsamwa. It will be of no surprise that I utilise my existing network in the university to find Samwa. Samwa specialises in AI, and more specifically has been making life easier for physicians through her lifelong work on computer vision, pattern recognition and machine learning. Samwa first bridged over to medicine when the Radiology Consortium, interested in diffusing lung diseases, wanted to use pattern recognition to automate the diagnosis. Her expertise and willingness to extend herself into an applied field is the strength that we recognise. Her work with clinicians in radiology 15 years ago has grown and extended to work with neuroscience in addressing Alzheimer's, dementia, and prenatal obstetrics. My last image shows two of my fellow board members, Victor Rodriguez and Lawrence Crumpton, with a recent graduating student at a careers fair. These two, along with Samwa, are examples of those of us in industry that have worked cross-functionally. Lawrence heads Microsoft Asia's mixed media product HoloLens, and HoloLens is a virtual reality headset of many uses. One example of its use is helping interactively teach anatomy to medical students. Victor is head of product development for Australian implantable hearing technologies Cochlear. It is quite nice to acknowledge their expertise within the intersection of medicine and tech, as it reinforces my point in finding commonalities to deepen relationship connections we have. This photo was taken pre-COVID when we held an interactive masterclass for the students to practice their interview techniques. These stories have been brought together to help illustrate my definition of networking. Beyond LinkedIn connection counts, Facebook friends, and attending drink functions, it for me is about taking the opportunity to get to know someone at a deeper level. Relationships are the first-hand experience of someone's work ethics and values in action in a variety of situations. The quality of your network is a reflection of who you are, who you should take the opportunity to ensure the approach you build and foster your network reflects you. It is important for us to connect as people as we get the proper context and the application of our collective expertise. Working in IT and telecommunications has demonstrated that while we can do and support a great many things with machine learning, we are constantly tuning and validating it against the human dimension. I would also like to add that as much as I am amazed at the possibility of AI, smart cities and Internet of Things, as well as the applications of tech and health, we must remember that we're all designed to give us more, not less time to practice the art of relationship building and our connection with people. My hope is that today you found something that resonates for you to act, to deepen your own support network, one that expands your horizons, furthers your learning and complements your passions. Thanks for listening.
Pia, it was a very nice presentation because I loved your diction and narration. They are very nice. It is. I think that your colleagues and the people when you are collaborating with like this very much. You are very good at telling about your opinions. It was very nice. This was a very nice presentation because we all need this from different fields, from different. We are working with different stuff, and most all of us need the collaborations, connections with different people, and we need to learn about the innovative technologies and what people are doing. So this is very important to be connected with different people, different fields, and different places. So this was very nice to learn your experience and what you want to share. So there is a question here. Barbara Marino asks, the other, the other presentation spoke of a multidisciplinary approach to problem solving. With which discipline do you most closely work?
At the moment, I'm working in the telecommunications field, so I spend quite a bit of time building mobile networks and supporting mobile networks. And that has quite a lot of elements to it, whether it be sort of construction of and landlord handling through to the actual devices and the way they work, or through to customer service of issues that are going on in the network and how that then relates back through. So we're constantly dealing with a whole heap of different people.
And Dr. Kanu asks, great, Pia. It is all about social and emotional intelligence. And by the way, when we are talking about connections, being in networking, and also social media, there are some problems with typical challenges facing women in STEM. Do you want to say something, female engineers or clinicians related to STEM? What kind of problems women are facing in this field? So, because of you have a success story, and you know how to manage with this kind of problems. So what you can say about this for a young audience, female audience?
Oh, look, I think the speakers that have spoken just before me, Sara and Ifey, have been sort of fantastic to listen to, because they're great role models, right? There's so much information to learn from them, and there's just such passion in what they do. So I think the main issue that we face, being women in STEM, is very similar to a lot of other industries, and that is that there isn't enough of us in those leadership realms, and that we really need to be at that table, and we need to stay to be at that table. So I definitely encourage all women, and whichever way, look up and be, take your place, because it makes a big difference to stay and be part of that decision making. And it also is great when you just never know when you're going to be able to influence someone to actually move that course or consider your view and whatnot. So I strongly encourage everyone, whether you're in STEM or not, just to continue the conversation in leadership for women.
Thank you. And I wonder, what gives you the most job satisfaction?
I actually really like working with people. I think, I find I get a lot of energy from that connection and that relationship, and sort of being silent a lot, just listening to how the passion works for them. So that definitely gives me the most job satisfaction.
We can feel your satisfaction, and what you like your job. I can see that passion. Thank you very much for this amazing speech, Pia. And now our third speaker is Rita Bosman. By the way, we have one more comment from Dr. Sara. Thank you for sharing your very interesting experience. Networking is a central part of multidisciplinary research. With all conferences, networking events going online due to COVID-19, how do you think we can continue to make new links?
So I mean, obviously, out of this, there's, I think, a classic, live example of an opportunity to actually connect and hear in depth about what it is, and then find sort of commonalities. you know, I guess I'm strongly encouraging you to sort of also look at your own sort of support structures and just work out the way through all of our tech to stay connected and then to find the right conversations to strike and to use that as a base until you can actually meet more face to face. But yeah, look, it's I think it's also important to make sure that you have that motivation levels together, and those commonalities definitely help.
Thank you very much, Pia.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Now Liana will introduce our fourth speaker. Liana.
Thank you very much, Banu, and thank you very much, Pia, for such an amazing talk. So the first and last speaker, we have the PhD Lisa Bosman, who is an assistant professor at Purdue University. And so she has her PhD in industrial engineering. She is an assistant professor at Purdue University. Her research interests center around technology leadership and innovation from both a scientific perspective and education research viewpoint. Dr. Bosman has authored over 50 publications and has recently co-authored the book Teaching the Entrepreneurial Mindset to Engineers. She has won a lot of research funding from different agencies, and in her free time, Dr. Bosman focuses on her 2 startups as well. So prior to joining higher education, Dr. Bosman spent several years working in the industry as a manufacturing engineer with well-known companies including Harley-Davidson Motor Company, John Deere, and Oshkosh Truck. So welcome, Professor Lisa Bosman, and please start your talk. Thank you very much for being with us.
Hello, can you hear me? Yeah, great. So welcome, good afternoon to those that might be listening later on in the US, or good evening to wherever everybody else might be in the world. So today I'm going to talk about why and how engineers can develop the entrepreneurial mindset. And there's 3 main topics that I'm going to be briefly talking about. First of all, what is the entrepreneurial mindset? Second, what are the benefits of developing the entrepreneurial mindset? And then finally, how can you develop your own entrepreneurial mindset? So just a little bit about me. So I'm a tenure-track assistant professor at Purdue University, which is located in the Midwest United States, about a 2-hour drive from Chicago. I have a PhD in industrial engineering, and if you haven't heard our motto yet, it's engineers make things and industrial engineers make things better. So in other words, we're all about continuous improvement. So continuous improvement around quality, productivity, safety, financial aspects. And given the presentation focus, I have a passion for developing and researching the entrepreneurial mindset. On the next few slides, I will explain how this passion came to be, starting with the focus of my PhD dissertation research. So my PhD dissertation research, for that I developed what I call a solar energy blue book. So this was conceptually similar to the Kelly Blue Book, if you're familiar with that, which allows consumers to estimate the value of a used car. The Solar Energy Blue Book is a solar energy system evaluation tool, which would take into consideration factors such as regional location that would determine the quantity of incoming sunshine, or zip code for the cost of electricity. So the Solar Energy Blue Book allows potential solar energy system consumers the opportunity to understand return on investment for new and in particular used solar energy systems. So if a home with solar panels was put up for sale, the Solar Energy Blue Book could help realtors and home buyers estimate the associated value. Or in the case of damage caused by, for example, weather or due to theft, the Solar Energy Blue Book could help insurance appraisers estimate the depreciated value related to the solar energy system. About a year after completing my PhD, I applied to participate in the Workbench Lab's inaugural Energy, Power, and Controls Accelerator Startup Program. In this program, I was able to put a name to my idea, Solar Swami. I was one of 10 teams invited to participate in the 10-week program, which culminated in a demo day where we were able to pitch our innovations to a crowd of over 500 people. And through this program, I was required to interview over 100 people, which was a great learning experience in itself. And it was during this program that I learned about Steve Blank's lean startup methodology in business model canvas. So the business model canvas is shown here. Given the 9 boxes of the business model canvas and associated analytical approach to hypothesis testing, I immediately saw logic in the process, and the engineer in me was hooked on this new way of thinking, especially because engineers play such an important role in the entrepreneurial process. So even though where I started in my dissertation research was looking at solar energy, I now was moving into more of the commercialization aspect and really understanding what a value proposition is. So the rest of what I'm going to talk about is really specific to engineers in general, but I'll provide a few examples specific to the healthcare industry. So first of all, the role of engineers in the entrepreneurial process. So from a macro perspective, just focusing on the bottom, engineers work on projects, the discovery to evaluation to exploitation of an opportunity. So what may start as a simple new product or service idea during the discovery phase continues to evolve as assumptions are evaluated, potentially snowballing into a business model opportunity to be exploited at the commercial level. From the micro perspective, the engineering design process, so that's defining the problem, brainstorming ideas, planning solutions, and going in that iterative process. It's the iterative step that engineers cycle through to design a solution to a customer problem or a challenge. And then finally, the third area, so the exploitation of an opportunity can be achieved through organizations or as individuals. In either case, there must be this association of value. And the most valuable design is where there's customer desirability, so people want it. There's technology feasibility, we can actually build it or offer it. And then there's the business viability, so it just makes financial sense. So given the roles engineers play in the entrepreneurial process, I kept on thinking, why aren't we actually sharing this information with engineering students? And this was solely based off of my sample size N of 1, but then in talking with several other engineers that went to different schools, nobody was learning about this. So the only obvious next step when I saw this process was to actually create resources for engineering faculty. And that's when this textbook came out in 2018, Teaching the Entrepreneurial Mindset to Engineers. I collaborated with Dr. Fernhaber. She has a PhD in entrepreneurship. And so we were definitely qualified to create the book. And once it was published, we got a lot of contacts from it, a lot of follow-up. People wanted to learn more about it and requested that we offer faculty professional development workshops for engineering faculty to show them how to integrate this into the classroom. And because it was such a big hit, we're now working with Springer on a second book that focuses on all disciplines. So not just limiting it to engineers, but looking at the role that everybody has in that process. So to get to what is the entrepreneurial mindset, it's the inclination to discover, evaluate, and exploit opportunities. But it's important to note that the entrepreneurial mindset is not just about startups, but it is important for new product development or continuous improvement within a company or even one's personal life. So for engineers, discovering the entrepreneurial mindset is about moving away from the traditional notion of an obedient engineer who simply does what they are told, and instead is more about engineers asking questions and thinking more strategically about the why. And I'm going to just demonstrate with a quick example, a 2-minute video that explains how this works.
A growing number of universities, businesses, and authors are recognizing the need for the United States to produce engineers with an entrepreneurial mindset. With the help of Daniel and Alicia, 2 students who just graduated with engineering degrees, we'll look at what this mindset is and what it isn't. Daniel and Alicia received their degrees from a university that teaches traditional engineering, with an emphasis on problem solving and technical acumen. When they arrive at their new jobs, they receive the specifications and get straight to work. They apply the technical skills they acquired in college and even demonstrate some innovation, but that's where their engagement ends. Daniel and Alicia focused on the problem at hand and executed the task they were given. but they did not engage the company's customers or anticipate new market opportunities. Eventually, global competition eroded the company's market share until it was no longer profitable. Could an entrepreneurial mindset have led to a more positive outcome? This time, Daniel and Alicia began by asking questions. Recognizing the problem as an opportunity, they talked with customers about their needs. The answers make them reconsider the purpose of the new specifications. The feedback leads them to the realization that there are different markets. When they analyze societal and economic trends, it becomes clear that one market segment will grow. The specification handed to them is not the answer. Instead, they propose an alternate technology that better serves the growing market. In this process, Daniel and Alicia simultaneously evaluated the need, the market, societal trends, and technical feasibility. Now that they understand the full range of opportunities, Daniel and Alicia collaborate with each other and with colleagues to design a product that exceeds the specifications, achieves cost savings, and expands into new business opportunities. They exhibited the attributes of entrepreneurially minded engineers, helping their employer meet with commercial success.
So moving on to the next area, or the next topic area, what are the benefits of developing the entrepreneurial mindset? First, you can add value to your company or a startup if that's where you're at. But second, and I almost think more importantly, you can add value to your personal life. Just as some examples with respect to the business perspective, these can include new product development, perhaps through the offering of new apps or wearables, both of which are innovative technologies trending within the healthcare sector. But it's not limited to that. It's important to keep in mind that it can also be process related. So it could perhaps be through the deployment of new productivity software at work, or in this example, through the implementation of new COVID-19 testing processes. But then it can also be applied to your personal life. So developing the entrepreneurial mindset and thinking more strategically could result in negotiating a lower price on a used car or a new car, or getting a better mortgage rate, or even creating a new job for yourself. So there's many different ways that the value can present itself. The third area I'm going to focus on is how can you develop your own entrepreneurial mindset? And I have it broken down into these three areas. So identifying values and beliefs, increasing your capabilities, and then building a supportive environment. So within the first area of identifying values and beliefs, ideally these should be consistent across your day job as well as your personal life. But there are many cases where these may not be in alignment. For example, if you're transitioning from one career path to another. But the first thing I recommend for people to do is to think about the why. And that's where a personal mission statement can be effective. So a personal mission statement can help document your why. And on the left-hand side, there's an example, a Mad Libs type example, like a fill in the blank. And on the right-hand side, there's an actual example. And if you do a Google search, you'll discover that there's many more areas to look at, or many more examples to look at online. So it's starting with the why and understanding where you want to go, just like what a business does. Then the next step, just like what a business does or companies do, is strategic planning. So once you have your why established, it's a matter of filling in the blanks. What objectives or measures or goals might you have to get to that why that's established in the mission statement? Next, increase your capabilities. And this can be done in three ways. First of all, it can be done through self-efficacy by improving your how-to knowledge. It can be increased through resourcefulness by increasing your access to knowledge. So even if you don't know how to do something, at least you can access or figure out. And then the last one is increasing your growth mindset. So by improving your metacognitive ability to learn new knowledge. Just as some examples related to self-efficacy, a popular course, Steve Blank's course is available on Udacity. This is free, and this is one way to just take advantage of MOOCs. The next example I provide is by listening to podcasts. And then the last one is through books. And the E-Myth is just one that I've read several years ago, and it's one that's really connected with me. And so these are all examples just specific to self-efficacy. The second area on resourcefulness. So here's an example of a personal resources map. And this is somewhat filled in, but this is just something that people can think about. What are your internal? So on the upper right hand, the intrinsic or internal, and the bottom right hand is the extrinsic or external. So it's understanding what do you have access to that you can build up your skills. On the left-hand side, we have materials on the bottom left-hand. So that's kind of looking at technology or your environment. And then moving up to the top are some other different areas to look in. So this is one area that you can, an example of a map that you can fill in the blanks. And if they're empty, then you know what you need to focus on. And then finally, for the growth mindset, if you're not familiar with Carol Dweck's book, I'm sure she's got a lot of publicity online and there's a lot going on. On the far right, there's the power of yet. And so it's just understanding our mindsets or even language changes to say, you know, I may not be good at it, but I may not be good at it yet. And it's something that I can do eventually, or having that growth mindset and looking at the metacognitive ability to actually learn something that you may not know. And then the third is building a supportive ecosystem. And so there's three areas I'm going to talk about: mentors, events, and spaces. So just as the first example with mentors, long gone is the notion that we might have just one go-to guru that we depend on. Instead, our mentoring, our aspect to our connections to mentors should be wide and diverse. And so sometimes we'll need to go to people for advice. Sometimes we'll need to go to people for support. Sometimes there's specific training, and this kind of goes back to our previous with the resourcefulness. So there's many different types of people that we might benefit from with respect to mentoring. And LinkedIn is a great way to touch base. And it may not be that you are directly connected. Maybe it's somebody that you're connected to. The 6 degrees of freedom, so the connections to others, are a great way to get at mentors. Next, the events, signing up for workshops. These could be in-person workshops, online workshops. This is just one example. With attending events, it provides a community setting that you can use to support what it is you're trying to accomplish. And then the third is the spaces. The examples that I provide here are within the Purdue area, and these are co-working spaces. So co-working spaces are just another opportunity to develop that sense of belonging and really leverage the support from not only the folks, but the technology and other resources that might be available through those spaces. And maybe co-working spaces isn't an option, but there's always coffee shops or libraries or other spaces that might work just as well. So in summary, there's the 3 areas that I went over. First of all, what is the entrepreneurial mindset? The inclination to discover, evaluate, and exploit opportunities. The benefits really highlight the value. So that value is not only to a business or a startup, but the value can also be to you personally. And then finally, how you can develop your entrepreneurial mindset is through these 3 areas of identifying values and beliefs, increasing your capabilities, and building a supportive ecosystem. So again, here's my contact information, and if you'd like, feel free to follow up on social media. And then please let me know if you're interested in collaborating or looking for facilitation for professional development workshops. Most recently, I've been not only in the US, but internationally to Indonesia and Palestine giving these workshops. So thank you, and I'd be glad to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lisa. It was a great talk, and actually it was especially interesting for me, even though I'm not an engineer. I'm a PhD student in biomedical sciences. I'm thinking on transiting from academia to industry. So it was very interesting to see someone who actually did that in some way and teaches how to do it. So for sure, I will be in contact with you if you don't mind. We have some comments and questions. So as a lecturer who teaches students from different engineering fields, I would like to thank you for this beautiful presentation that touches on common problems, says Banu. This is very important for them to trust themselves with the real world, to connect with the real world and take aware steps. So do you also create special courses for undergrad students to adapt to practical applications?
So that's a great question. Our particular focus has been instead of creating courses around entrepreneurship or the entrepreneur mindset, we want to integrate it into traditional engineering courses. For example, I've taught calculus before, but one more specific to engineering is thermodynamics. And many times students wonder, they spend so much time doing calculations and the formulas that they wonder, why am I doing this? What is the real world relevance? And so that's where our greater focus is, on integrating the entrepreneurial mindset into courses such as that, for example, so that students spend more time, or at least some of the time, understanding the real world relevance rather than plugging and chugging numbers into a formula. So our focus is more on the integration into traditional classes or regular classes.
Okay, that's a very interesting approach, actually, because we are, at least in the university, we are very bombarded by the theoretical part and then the practice, and to see what is it, how is it valuable for me. Sometimes we can't see it, and that's very important to have. So another question is from Barbara Marino. Do you think it's enough for engineering students to take an entrepreneurial course, or should engineering programs work to develop their own? I think you already answered in some way.
Yeah, so in the US, at least, for engineering programs, students typically take like an intro or a first year engineering course that's more real world like, and then they take the capstone course. And typically in that in-between area, they don't get much of the real world applications. And so in my personal opinion, whether it's a course that students should have to take, or whether it's adding or integrating into courses, either one should be sufficient. But at least in the US, there's been we get a lot of pushback from engineering faculty because there's so much content and there's so much rigor that I think engineering faculty don't want to lose the courses that they're teaching. And so we see this as like a low-hanging fruit, as just integrating something into the class. And so it's something that faculty or professors can do on their own without having to get the whole university or the whole college or their whole department involved. And so we just see this as maybe a first step, and then down the road it might make sense to add more specific courses.
Okay, thank you. Seeto says, thank you, Lisa. Fabulous perspective and approach on the integration of the concepts to make it more engaging and help see the real world applications. Thank you for thank you for sharing. And Banu also comments that when we teach students to look from this point of view very early, innovative and feasible ideas will also emerge, and they can take steps in the regard. Thank you for raising awareness on this issue. And from my side, I would like to thank you, because it's very important for us in this innovative and the real world to see not only what we are doing in the lab, but see the application of it. So thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
Banu, do you want to say some last words before I finish?
Yeah, thank you, Lisa, for this nice presentation, because it was very important for all of us. We all need it, and also young listeners, like young audience, learned much because they know they want to do something, but they don't feel comfortable for doing those stuff. So if they know what to do, who to connect, so that will be very nice. Just learning how to think on these pathways. So thank you very much for this inspiring presentation. Today was the third day of our July female engineers sessions. So we will also one more session at the, next Saturday. Thanks for the founders of Clinician Engineer Hub, Dr. Neil Sharma, Dr. Ali Yetishan, and Dr. Matt Bergos, and also Faisal Nuaz and Claire Jordan were ready for helping us. This inspiring session was very fruitful for me, and I'm sure that all audience enjoyed this very much. Thank you for being with us today, and thank you for accepting our invitation. And maybe Liana can talk about our next week's plan now.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Banu. Once again, thank you very much to all our speakers. It was a great session, very productive and fruitful and very interesting with different perspectives. I believe you can see my screen now, right? So this was the third day, and we will have our last session on the 25th of July. We will have with us Mimi Isabella Nosu, a civil engineer, and as well the Parasto Hashemi, the principal investigator in the Hashemi lab, and the surprise keynote lecturer that we will announce this week before the actual day. So once again, I would like to thank both the organizing organizations of this series of webinars, the Clinician Engineer Hub, that aims to bridge the gap between medicine and engineering. It's a non-profit organization that aims to bring together the clinician and biomedical engineering field and provide talented medical students and clinicians to expose to the world of clinical medicine, challenges doctors face in diagnosing and treating patients, and how to potentially solve these issues with cutting-edge engineering solutions. Please check our website. We are now developing a new website, so keep in touch with us to check that. And we also have the EIT Health Alumni Network, which I am part of as well. It's a multidisciplinary community of innovators building the future of healthcare. Our slogan is By Alumni for All. Our mission is to support the EIT Health by building an active network of alumni dedicated to activities to improve quality of life, active aging, and healthcare across Europe. And our vision is to become the leading European association of health, social, and life sciences professionals, entrepreneurs, innovators, and executives. And because you are now with us in this event, you are more than welcome to register in our network and start enjoying the whole opportunities and also jobs in our network. So you can scan the code and just join us right now. And this was all. I would once again thank you all for being with us. And the last thing is to take the picture all together. So please turn on your cameras, all the speakers and the participants. Perfect. I will take the picture now. Done. So thank you very much for all our speakers and the participants, and see you next week, hopefully.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.